Hello there, you're live.
How are you now?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.
No problem. Do you want to introduce yourself there? Give us a little bit of your history, your background, and we can go from there.
Certainly. And my name is Jolene Bunting. I was elected to Belfast City Council in 2014. From there, I noticed that we were having a lot of problems with Islam and terrorism, which was coming from this religion. I'd done a bit of research and my eyes were open. Um, I can't be in a position as a councillor and not speak out against the evils that I was seeing. And I spoke out about it, and I was demonized. Belfast City Council, um, the chief executive of Belfast City Council actually put a complaint in against me for speaking out against Islam, and I was demonized. So much so that I lost my seat in May this year, and I completely put that down to the demonization simply because I spoke out against Islam.
Wow, that's unbelievable. So you just criticized Islam, and you were removed from your seat in the council.
Yeah, I held an anti-terrorism rally, which was one of the main things that seemed to be of concern, that I was against terrorism.
Wow, that's unbelievable, isn't it? I actually
It's
heard.
it's
Go ahead.
it's quite frightening that an elected member can be targeted in that way for simply speaking the truth. And the reality is, I broke no laws, and I told no lies, yet I was completely demonized.
Right. Okay. And what was the what happened after that? After that, was there any pushback on your side, or were you just demonized in the media, or how did that all
Oh,
unfold?
well, it came from a lot of different angles. So it came from obviously social media, you know yourself now, anyone who speaks out about immigration and the problems that we are having with immigration, we are immediately targeted by these what can only be described as bots or on Twitter, who really result to personal insults. They never really um have ever attack me for my policy because they can't, because it's just what I'm saying and what I was trying to enforce is completely true, and so many people think the same as myself. I had that on social media. That was the beginning of it, where these party sites were just constantly bombarding me with personal insults. Um, when I started speaking out about Islam, then a cabal of left wing activists, from Sinn Fein, SDLP, Green Party, People Before Profit, all put complaints into the local government commissioner, um, who then found the need to suspend me while he investigated these complaints. Now, this never happens now. This was completely unique to politics. No other elected member has ever been treated like this. So he suspended me. At that point, I got my legal team to fight an appeal. To be honest with you, because it was so unique, the High Court appeal didn't actually know how to deal with it. And in the end, I didn't lose the appeal, but I didn't win it either. And basically, the judge was quite confused of what power he had, and what he was to do with this case, because it was so bizarre, it was so widespread, and there were so many flaws from the official body that was the local government commissioner. Um, so so I fought that appeal, and obviously with me losing my seat, then there has been nothing further on that. I've been speaking to my legal team, and I do want to I want to clear my name. Unfortunately, it's a lot. There's a lot of complications, which is stopping me from doing that. Um, but I certainly am going to fight to clear my name because, as I say, I told no lies and I broke no laws.
Right, okay. So you would have a unionist background, if I'm not mistaken. Is that not correct?
Yes, yeah, I'm a loyalist.
You're a loyalist.
I'm a young lady from the Shankill Road, um, in Belfast, which is a loyalist heartland, and I'm very proud of my British heritage.
Right, okay. Now I've been trying to reach out to the unionist community, the loyalist community, because I believe we need to come together because North and South we're being with a big problem with mass immigration, obviously. And I think that's the biggest problem in our nation, like North and South and the island of Ireland. And I think we need to
Abs
put our differences aside, like whether it be Catholic or Protestant, Unionists or Republicans. So that's my opinion, and that's why I reached out to you to come on to the show. And that's my whole idea. I don't know what your opinion is and all of that.
Absolutely no, and I think we all need to stand up to this evil. You know, evil can only continue, and good good people stay silent, and that's the reality of it. And we all need to stand together and say that this is wrong, and it's, at the minute, Northern Ireland isn't getting hit as hard as the Irish Republic, and I know that the stories coming from the Irish Republic are frightening. However, we in Northern Ireland over the last 2 years or so, we have seen an explosion in immigration, um, and it has it has literally transformed whole areas of Belfast, and whole areas in other places as well. I would travel around the country quite a lot, following footbands. Um, so I have seen how different areas have changed over a year, where areas have basically had an influx of migrants, um, and locals just they can't cope with it. So what happens is the locals then start to move, and these migrants then ghettoize the areas. And we've seen this in England. We've seen it played out globally, um, and I am seeing it happening in my own area.
Right, okay. Yeah, it's frightening what's happening in the south regarding mass immigration. Like we're seeing a lot of the towns in Ireland, the ethnic population are becoming minorities in their own towns, you know. You see that in like small towns in Mayo and all over Dublin.
We do have.
I'm gonna
Sorry, go ahead now.
No, I was just gonna say, you seem to deal with immigration. You seem to deal with it better than the Republicans in your own communities. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, that's down to our politicians, and and in nationalist communities, we have seen Sinn Fein time and time again top polls. It really doesn't. I can't comprehend why anyone would vote for Sinn Fein. And it doesn't matter how I try to rationalize it in my head. I just don't understand why anyone would vote for Sinn Fein. Um, so, so what is happening is Sinn Féin are Marxists, they're socialists, and their motto is basically Brits out, everyone else in. And their areas have been flooded now. Republican nationalist Catholic areas have been absolutely flooded with migrants. Um, and it seems the nationalist politicians are just saying, well, you have to accept it. Um, and I think in the nationalist community, people are even more afraid than the unionist community. I don't think the unionist community are afraid to speak out as much as the nationalist community are.
Yeah, I don't know what that is about. Why the Republican communities are so afraid to speak out. I don't know why Sinn Fein too have such a stronghold, because, like you said, they're nothing but Marxist, anti-Irish traitors. They promote mass immigration. They're pro open borders. They're for the sexualization of our children. They march at gay pride parades. It's just a complete betrayal of the Irish people, and the Irish people need to wake up, and especially in the north, and stop voting for Sinn Féin.
Absolutely. And I think as well, a lot of it, we've seen this with the EU situation, where Sinn Féin would be opposed to the EU when it comes to the Republic. However, when it comes to Northern Ireland, Sinn Féin seem to be um, completely remain and wanted to remain within the EU. And I always think to myself, well, it's obvious what they're doing there. It's because they know that the EU is toxic and the EU is dragging our society down and our economy, and that we would be better without them. So they are terrified that Northern Ireland is going to boom after Brexit, and I think that's why they have gone so far into this Marxist situation. I think it may be a different story when it comes to their policies in the Republic than in Northern Ireland, and that's wrong. They obviously just want to destroy Northern Ireland, and we can't allow them to do it. And I appeal to the anyone who is in the areas where Sinn Féin has are strong, get out and vote for someone different, because they are going to destroy us. They're going to destroy our communities, and they don't they don't care who is hurt in the meantime. We have to remember that the Sinn Féin, to me, Sinn Féin um have left their terrorism campaign, their bombs and their guns, and have simply moved to politics, but they are destroying their own communities in the same time. At the same time, and the IRA killed over 300 Catholics in their murder campaign. So they're not afraid to destroy their own community if they think that it will advantage them.
Yeah, I know what you're saying now. I want to ask you, how does the north deal with so-called asylum seekers? I know down the south here we have what's called direct provision centres, like refurbished hotels. That they ship these so-called migrants in the middle of the night and put them there for a certain amount of time. How does it work in the north?
Yeah, well, we've seen our community centres used in a similar way, where they have brought in these refugees recently, where they have basically set them up in community centres. They have bussed in volunteers to come in and to speak to these refugees, and treat them with a lot of courtesy and a lot of care. We've recently seen Belfast City Council have set up, along with the Equality Commission, a helpline for migrants who have just arrived in the country, to get their benefits, get their housing sorted, and to give them as much advice as possible. Um, that made me so angry, because I see time and time again, as a councillor, I done everything I could to help these people. But I am only one woman, where local people can't get their housing sorted, they can't get their benefits sorted, they have nowhere to turn to. Yet it was a priority for the council to arrange this, and to arrange this service for migrants instead of for local people.
Right, okay. Because, yeah, we see a large problem in the north too with suicide rates and, homeless crisis. I think there's like something like 9 or 10,000 homeless in the north. So how is the government able to house, migrants, but yet there's 10,000 homeless on the streets of the north?
Well, what I will say is we don't have a huge housing problem in Northern Ireland. We simply don't. And, people would prefer different areas and things like that. If they were to go to certain areas, the houses aren't taken up. What we are finding is that there is a high suicide rate. There's also a high drug abuse rate. And again, we can put that down to migration because I know that there are a lot of migrants who are flooding our communities with drugs, and we need to really be aware of that and to locate where these drugs are coming from, and to ensure that our young people are educated enough not to get addicted and not to end up living on the streets where they are so vulnerable. And we must, pick up our vulnerable communities, such as our homeless, and we must ensure that they get an all-round help. Because what we find is that um, we have the housing executive in Northern Ireland, and the housing executive will give these homeless men and women the points that they need to get a home from the housing executive. However, what we are finding, and this is something that I learned as a counsellor and I wasn't aware of and until I dealt with it, is that there are people who are homeless because they choose to be homeless because of their mental health. And we must deal with the mental health crisis that we have in Northern Ireland. But no one seems there's the quick fix solutions when 15 people have died from suicide in a matter of a month. However, the quick fixes aren't working. We need a long-term mental health solution. But our politicians and our councillors are too busy um, dealing with absolutely ridiculous things which they shouldn't be dealing with. In that council chamber, we spoke about Palestine, the Palestinian Israeli war. Um, in the council chamber, we spoke about the most ridiculous subjects, and time and time again, either myself or other councillors were standing up and saying, "Why are we speaking about this in this chamber? This is not anything to do with Belfast. We need to focus on Belfast. We have so many issues that we're not dealing with." And I have no doubt that that has worsened in this term of Belfast City Council because there is no one now speaking up and saying, "Listen, we need to deal with the real problems."
Right. Okay. And what do you think is behind this mental health crisis? Is it no? Uh, is it to do with drugs? Is it, or what do you think's behind it? Because we have a problem with that in the south as well.
Well, I think what is happening, especially in Northern Ireland, is that we have seen a lot over the years. Over the years of the terror campaign from the IRA, we have seen bombs, we have seen kneecaps, we have seen paramilitary style attacks on our young people, and now what we have are young people who have been traumatized and have I would say that a lot of these people who are addicted to drugs, you could look at and the likelihood is that they are going to have the likes of PTSD, which is affecting their mental health, which is drove them then to become drug addicts, to the point where their families can no longer maintain their addiction, and then that's how they end up on the street. So we have a huge problem there with the mental health issues from the troubles, but we also have on top of that this global problem, where drug and when I say drugs, I'm talking hard drugs, where these people are turning into zombies and they don't know what they're doing. So these drugs are affecting so many young people, old people, and there's no one being untouched by this epidemic. Um, I believe there's some sort of agenda behind it. Um, where these drugs are coming from, we need to locate, we need to look into, we need to ensure that they aren't being used in a tool to ensure control over our country.
Yeah, you see too, in the ferry services coming from the UK, like Manchester, etc., that there's no border control at all. No one's checking for passports coming into Ireland. Like there's, so it makes sense like that there will be a drug epidemic in Ireland if there's open borders. Like these drugs could be coming in anywhere.
Well, exactly. What we find is, and people are crying about this hard border. After Brexit, there's going to be a hard border. I don't believe that there will be a hard border. No one's going to put. The only people who are talking about this hard border are people who are complaining about Brexit. No one, the EU have says there'll be no hard border. Ireland have says there'll be no hard border, and the UK have says there will be no hard border. But I can also think to myself, I wish there was a hard border, because at least we could then control who was coming into our country, what was coming into our country. Um, so with open borders, there's going to be a drug epidemic, but there's also going to be an influx of illegal migrants. The UK, and I'm not too sure what the Irish policy is, but basically, if you come to the UK illegally and you get here, you can stay. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that these people are sneaking into this country. They aren't even going through our airports. They are. We have seen the rubber dinghies turning up on British beaches. We have seen at Calais how crazed these migrants are, and it's because they know that if they can somehow get their feet on British soil, that they have opened a world of benefits, housing, and they will have a more comfortable life than someone who has been born and reared in the UK, which is disgusting.
Yeah, it is. So I just want to bring up the point again before I bring on my next caller, Jolene. Would you mean agreements that we need to come together, unionists and I guess Republicans, nationalists, um, we need to come together regarding controlling immigration because as unionists and nationalists we have our cultures are pretty much very similar. We like the same type of music, we eat the same food, we like the same sports, we speak the same language, so you know we have a lot in common. Our cultures are pretty much identical in my opinion, so we need to put what's
Now,
gonna.
something that struck me, which I'm demonized as this sectarian bigot. I have been from I was elected. I'm a young girl from the Shankill, and I'm a proud loyalist. However, I don't hate anyone, and I'm happy to work with anyone who is working for the betterment of my country. So I was really struck when I started speaking out about immigration, the amount of Catholic nationalists who contacted me and said, Jolene, you're the only one speaking out about this, and thanked me for speaking out. I had a elderly lady who actually handed out leaflets directing people to my Facebook page to find out the truth. Um, and we have to. It's a necessity that we work together, and it's a necessity that we also give the nationalist community a voice, and we allow them not to be afraid to speak out when they are saying things that are wrong. I had a phone call a few years ago from one of my constituents, who was quite confused because there was a house a few doors down, um, and there was different women basically going into the house, maybe staying there for 3 or 4 months and leaving after they had had children. And I thought to myself, yeah, that sounds like there's something wrong. It turned out that there was a landlord renting this house out to women, pregnant women who were coming in, having their babies here. That meant that their babies had British citizenship, and then they were leaving and going back to their country of origin. Um, and that meant that they were able to enter the UK at any time. Um, and this was a structured plan. And if it wasn't for that man being not being afraid to pick up the phone and to speak out about something that he's seen that was strange, because he knew that I wasn't going to say, "Oh, you're just a racist," because that's what we get when we start speaking out. People will say, "Oh, you're just racist." You know, we aren't racist. We're concerned, and we're concerned with good reason. And we only need to look at certain areas like South Belfast to see why we're concerned. If we go to UK mainland or if we go to Dublin, we see how the situation can worsen. Um, there has been so much immigration to to the UK. Some parts of London don't actually look like they are London. They look like the Middle East. And one of the things that I was demonized for was to actually defend a leaflet put out about Islam in East Belfast. A group of young people had got together and they had printed these leaflets and they distributed it around different homes in East Belfast. And it was really just an information leaflet, listing the tragedies, the terrorist attacks that had happened, and basically saying we need to be vigilant, we need to stand up, we need to deal with this. And of course, Belfast City Council thought that this was something that should be completely condemned, and I was the only councillor who stood up and says, "Well, actually, this this is an information leaflet. You know, yes, it's about Islam, but you know, if it was about Christianity, would there be the same reaction? No, there wouldn't be. So, um, we need to ensure that the reaction that people are getting when they are speaking out is one that they are brave, and we need to thank these people who are brave enough to speak out. Um, and unfortunately, I'm only on Twitter and Gab. But if anyone in the nationalist community wants to contact me, because they do have concerns, I know some channels that we can go down to try and deal with things which are happening. I had a constituent who actually she ended up having to move out of her home because the housing executive weren't willing to deal with migrants moving in to the house next door and banging all night, playing loud music, letting the children cry. So she moved out of that house eventually. Um, because the housing executive just wouldn't deal with their tenants. And what actually happened then was that more migrants moved into that house. And you can see then how whole areas can be then filled with minorities. And that's how ghettoization happens.
Wow, unbelievable, isn't it?
It's absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying now. And we, as I say, anyone who tries to speak out about it is demonized.
All right. Have you got any more thoughts or now before I bring on the next caller, Jolene?
Now, there are things going on in Northern Ireland that people haven't heard about on mainstream media. A lot of things are twisted when they are on mainstream media. Um, Recently, I actually produced a video called "Islam in Northern Ireland," and I asked your listeners to go onto YouTube and have a watch at this video, which lists a number of things which happened in Northern Ireland and Belfast, which people don't actually realize is going on. There was a murder. I know that there are grooming gangs all around Belfast, and if anyone is concerned, again, I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube, and I'm on Gab. Unfortunately, I have a lifetime ban on Facebook. But and now I'm on Discord. Please contact me. We need to deal with this situation. So you know, and I'm happy to stand with anyone who is willing to speak out.
All right, great stuff. Thanks a million for coming on. Hopefully, you'll come on again.
Yeah, no problem at all now.
All right.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Talk soon.
God bless. Bye bye.
Slán.